There had been much discussion over the topic of the next research progress following Beard's breakthrough into stone cutting. Jane suggested they all find out ways to make different colored lights, because that would be pretty, and soon they would have electricity. Sarge suggested they make some form of hazmat suit in case the worst should fall upon them in a non-military sort of way. And in the end, Doctor's suggestion that they study advanced electronic principles and the miniaturization that goes with them for implementation into this primitive lot finally won out. This, he said, would be the gateway that leads them off of this planet eventually, and no doubt would provide them with substantial advantage against any of the indigenous life forms. One such indigenous life form had been watching him for some days now. He tried to imagine it wasn't there, and slept facing away from it. Didn't seem to mind. Snuggled between her two dogs, Brittany and Shouter, Jane pretended to sleep, as was her custom. She was beginning to rather like this place, and its indigenous life forms. She wondered who the next visitors would be. Would they have rocket launchers too? Perhaps everyone has rocket launchers here. Poor Coley. Ever pessimistic. You would have thinked that maybe she, yes, thinked, it was a patent-pending word on her world, she owned the patent. You would have thinked that she would be feeling better about surviving an encounter with a supposedly friendly rocket launcher. But she wasn't. People had died, and it still bothered her. They just burned away. No funeral, no burial, just rain. Beard had attempted to create some form of romance with Jane. Perhaps he didn't realize that she wasn't quite what he thought she was. If he had, it would have explained her rebuffal of his advances. Ultimately, did little to cause him to feel any better. Macy lay awake, staring at the tin roof over her head. It was dreadful how poor she was, how poor this place was. She had a simple bed, some wooden walls, and a dirt floor. This would have to change. Perhaps some of this stone could be cut and turned into a fine floor for her. Perhaps she could even have a sculpture, some form of artwork. Yes, these thoughts began to fill her mind. McPherson, however, the poor nurse, slept on the floor. It had been suggested that they build a bed for her. Everyone thought this was a great suggestion. They really did. They meant to do it. At some point this week. They really did, McPherson. Worry not. food situation, however, was becoming alarming. And Sarge resolved to fix it in short order. The ibexes nearby made appealing targets for solving this predicament. While they needed food, they would also, before long, need to exploit this metal that was compacted into the side of the mountain. After all, their grand designs for making a solar panel and battery array would need more than just good intentions. Wouldn't do for their stone-cutting bench to be without some form of roof over it either. Nor would they simply want to stand about while cutting stone all day. McPherson decided to be a good sport about things and get to work bright and early in the morning with these unbelievably handy tools that could also be used to excavate compacted steel and stone and who knows what else. Now that they had a proper table, they could have a proper breakfast. It was nice, really. Truly it was. To have a gathering place where people could talk and eat at the same time. First thing after breakfast, there were things that had to be killed. Sarge decided that it was a fun idea to, rather than get a clear shot at them, take it to a game of blind horseshoes, as it were. Fire at the ibex, through the trees, past the steam vent, over the field of scrap metal, and miss repeatedly. In theory, he only needed one shot. He'd managed to wing it once or twice, as much as one can wing a quadruped. Ferson pretended to be mining this compacted machinery, but secretly she was watching with both admiration for his muscles and amusement for his marksmanship. Eventually finding his mark, several magazines later, the ibex would be the thing that supplied them with food today. If they were careful about it, and managed to make it fancy enough with berries, possibly tomorrow as well. Aiden surveyed the potatoes. They were growing rather well, all things considered. But in one day, just one day, the rice plants had very nearly outpaced them. Getting all of this slag out of the way from the wreckage of the ship would be an important task eventually. Doctor decided to converse with Beard over the monotonous task of digging away at compacted steel. What the both of them should have been doing was researching, but they weren't. At once deciding that was quite enough by the way of digging, they set about to researching microelectrics. Aiden had attempted to create something more than just friendship with Jane as well. But she rebuffed him as well. Was it because she wasn't interested, or perhaps she didn't realize what exactly he was trying to do? But there she was, industriously cleaning away all manner of dirt and filth from the remaining areas of the colony, engrossed in construction. What is this? Some form of vomit that was in there. She wondered why. Sarge, too, wondered. But he wondered where his beer had gone. He saw the doctor purchase it the other day. Wasn't technically his beer, not necessarily, not in the strictest of terms. But let's face it, he was the biggest one here. He had the most reliable gun. It was his beer. Then he remembered. He had heard Shouter knocking about a bottle in the middle of the night. He didn't put it together until just now, which caused him to feel absolutely terrible. But there was something that smelled about the dog earlier that day. Could huskies drink beer? If the wobbly gait, the sounds of vomiting, and general dopiness of the dog that day had been any indication, then the answer would surely be yes. But there was no time for such things. Some visitors had arrived, and they did not bring rocket launchers. They did not bring smiles. They didn't bring very much. Just a wooden club and some malintent. Very large, fat man took to attacking McPherson, saying, "You escaped once, but we're here to get you back." Her cries for help arose. Doctor and Sarge, the only ones equipped to deal with such things, ran immediately to her aid. She shouted out a battle plan to them. But could she execute it? For as fat as he was, he seemed to have some form of unnaturally good speed. Sarge accidentally hit McPherson, wouldn't you figure the only time Sarge hit anything on the first go-about, the thought of it made him sick and he vomited. Doctor then hit McPherson as well. Was it on purpose? They had finally managed to overcome. Doctor had taken a bit of a beating, but it was just a club, it would be well. McPherson, on the other hand, well, it's a marvel she wasn't dead. Plans for McPherson's bed would have to wait. They had prisoners. Sarge asked Macy, quite politely, to take this smelly cook into the room that McPherson would be in, eventually. Use it as a prison of sorts. Why had he attacked like that? Certainly there was something here of value. But never matter. Beard thought this was cause for socialization. A party. They'd survived their first armed conflict, and right after having discovered proper masonry. And what better place to have this party than on the table? Of course, he was busy figuring out important things such as microelectrics and space traveling cryogenics and that lot. It was his idea, but he wouldn't attend. Coley tried to coax them into coming out and joining. She really did. And as if that wasn't enough, a trading caravan from Comedian's Cliff came to join them. This would be a very large party as it stood, with all manner of cougars and muffalos and strangers. It was a wondrous occasion that was immediately preceded by copious amounts of gunfire, as is frequently the case, thought Sarge. It was important that their prisoner not die. They had questions for him. Beard managed to stabilize the bleeding, by and large. Doctor decided parties were for fools and immediately set to pursue his dream. Well, one of them. Party was over before the good people from Comedian's Cliff could arrive, as night was falling. Coley waved in greeting to them, while inviting them all to join her in a game of blind horseshoes. She assured them it would result in absolutely no harm to those standing on the other side of the post. And threw one very close to the austere young lady as she passed by, to demonstrate her point. Sarge thought it was great that they had visitors and all, but there were pretty stars in the sky, and he wanted to look at them. But perhaps he should see what exactly was on the offering this time. More rocket launches, perhaps. No. No rocket launchers. The man did say, however, having realized that they acquired a prisoner, that he would be willing to purchase this prisoner from them at a price. Sarge wasn't exactly keen on the idea of slavery and selling people into it, but he had to admit the damage that was done to McPherson, who had never harmed anyone, demanded satisfaction of a sort. In the meantime, however, he settled for beer. All of it. And this time, there would be no dogs eating the beer, or drinking it, or playing with the bottles, whatever it was that they'd been doing. He asked Coley to put the rest of it away. Urgently. Coley was stable. Doctor decided to spend the evening in the infirmary himself. He figured the raccoon would keep his bed safe. There were indeed questions to be answered. Perhaps they would just have a friendly chat with their prisoner. A friendly chat is all. Of course, the meaning of the term friendly is something of a subjective quandary.